Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
The Antichrist. You got me in a vendetta kind of mood.
I think Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem. It's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is blurry, and that's extra scary to me because there's a large, out-of-focus monster roaming the countryside.
And welcome back to the TheNightShade'sEcho, the podcast of roughly, sort of kindly named after witches humping brooms. This is Ryan, and this is
Susan.
We were gone last week because we had life.
It's true.
It was life happening last week, so
we all had a
skipped last
meltdown.
week. I pulled half of my hair out and had almost 3 strokes. So,
kids, don't do it, y'all. Just don't do it.
I've watched enough Mickey Mouse Club and Dora the Explorer to be fucking write books about them.
Probably. And now my son has decided he doesn't want to watch Dora anymore, and we're like, what are we gonna do?
You would cry if you didn't have Dora on. Like, he knew how to turn the TV on to get the Dora.
And mind you, he's not 2 years old yet.
And we have a Roku TV, and he knew which app it was and how to get to it.
Yeah, he's extremely smart. He knows what he wants, when he wants it, and he's basically got us wrapped around his little fingers. It's sad.
So now it is Puppy Dog Pals and the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Oh, he absolutely loses his shit when Mickey Mouse comes on. I mean, he screams the intro song.
When the intro comes on, for some reason, there's a part of it, also the outro where they do the hot dog dance. He goes, "Oh!"
It
makes this weird demon-possessed noise. It's weird
really
as fuck.
He really does sound possessed. It's scary. We both just like look at each other when it happens because we don't know whether to laugh, cry.
It's weird.
It's weird for sure.
Like, okay, dude, chill out. What the fuck?
And then he'll screech to part of the song. He's just singing.
Like the part in Dumb and Dumber where he goes, "You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?" And he goes, It's kind of like that. I'm sorry that was really loud, but I had to demonstrate the sounds that my son was making. We had somebody ask us what the name, why we talk about witches humping brooms in our name in the beginning of the show. So the name TheNightShade'sEcho was completely random when I came up with it. Completely random. It didn't mean anything. However, the more I looked into it, and I coincidentally kind of heard something, and I was like, "Holy shit, that makes sense." Here are my papers in the background. I like Alex Jones. So basically what happened in the Middle Ages, they used deadly nightshade, henbane, mandrake, and Jimson weed. All those are hallucinogenics. You take that shit, it'll fuck you up inside and out. Not only make you hallucinate, but it will make your insides like rot out pretty much. They use these plants in salves and ointments. And one of the most common one was called a wood softener. So they put this shit on brooms, on door handles, to make the wood last longer, so it wouldn't crack or dry. So farmers and these witches would take these brooms and door handles, mainly brooms and like pitchforks and things like that, and they would use them in ritual fertility rituals. And so what they would do is they would dance with them while straddling the broom or the pitchfork, almost like they're riding a broom. However, the ointment that was on it would get into their genitals, and they would soak it up. So not only were they hopping around on these brooms, they were high as balls, tripping out, believing that they were flying or riding on these brooms. Another thing that happened, mainly during like the witch trials and stuff, and if you look at the witch trials, it happened mainly with younger girls, like teenage girls. So what they would do is the girls got lonely. And so this ointment was on these brooms. And they would put the broom on the ground, they would straddle it and hump the broom because it was a type of masturbation. So they were riding the broom and you could hear the echoes from that deadly nightshade. So that's the orange of the name. The Nightshade's Echo.
Yeah, there you go. That is the history behind the Nightshade.
History of witches riding brooms and the name of our podcast.
Yep. A lot of people who, once we tell them the history, they think that's actually really hilarious.
And it wasn't meant to be that. It just so happened to coincide with something I'd heard, while listening to another podcast that they were talking about witches and stuff. I'm like, holy shit, that makes sense with the name, the Echoes of the Nightshade.
It's interesting how that all.
It's a synchronicity almost.
Well, yeah, and just think that it was interesting that you picked the name without even really realizing that it was a perfect name.
Yeah, it was a random bunch of words, and I was like, Nightshade, Echo, like that sounds spooky.
It does sound spooky.
like I envision like a dark forest or like a city where like the dimly lit lights along a street, and like there's a shadow underneath of it. The Nightshade's Echo. It almost sounds like a 1930s noir film.
Well, I was in my mind just now. It was Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah, definitely like some Rod Serling.
It definitely sounds like that could already be a Twilight Zone episode.
It's not, but it sounds awesome.
Yes.
Or the Night Gallery, if you also watched that one from the 70s. That one was pretty weird. The Night Gallery from the 70s, it wasn't as good as the Twilight Zone. However, there's some pretty good stuff. A lot of it was cheesy though.
What was the name of that one?
Boris Karloff's Thriller also gets widely unrecognized. That was a great show.
Is that the one that I'm thinking of?
You were the guy who did was it Roald Dahl? He had a show from the BBC channel from like the 80s that we watched where he was like in a robe smoking a pipe.
That one.
I think it was Roald Dahl.
Well, what's it
I can't remember the name
called,
of the show, but I'm almost like 70% sure it was Roald Dahl that did that.
Okay. Yes, and he was like telling stories from like the fireplace with like a big book.
He had like a big like red chair, like he was sitting by a fireplace.
Yeah, and he like narrated.
Yeah.
Narrated, but then it was like a different, like the Twilight Zone. It was a different episode, different characters every episode. And I remember, like, we watched all this. I don't know if I was pregnant yet.
I think it was on Amazon
Prime. Or not, but I remember you saw it was on there and you were like, we've got to watch it all. And then you made me watch it. And one of the shows that really stood out to me is the one where the guy bets people. So, like, one guy, I guess, met that other one, and he had that nice fancy car. Remember? Okay, so, like, I think that they were going to play cards. So that was how they got lured there. And that guy was like, well, I bet you this. And that's his whole thing, is that he bets people, and that's how he wins. I don't know. It was almost like a magic-y type stuff. Like, most people are not smart enough to find the loopholes to get out of it, but he somehow found the loopholes. That was a very interesting one.
I don't remember it all, but it reminds me of a Twilight Zone episode where the guy was able to flip the dice, where he was playing dice like a casino, and he was not smart, but the guy that was with him was like this New Yorker type gangster guy, and was like taking advantage of him, and he was using his mind to flip the die and whatnot. And eventually he was like, just did it on a roll so many times and he wouldn't stop. And the guy was like, stop. I'm not going to do this right because I'm going to mess up because I can't do it anymore. And eventually, like, the end of it, he bets everything that they'd won. And he told him, don't do that because I can't do it anymore. And so he does it anyways because he's so greedy. And then he loses everything. And then they go back to normal life.
That's crazy. Yeah. That would be some shit someone would do, though.
Breaking news this week.
We got monkeys play games of Pongs using only its mind. Scientists at Neuralink, it's a Elon Musk company, and they have inserted a microchip into a monkey's brain. Now, when I heard about this, and I was like, you know what? I feel like they've been talking about this. Because I had like a weird deja vu moment. Like, I thought that this had already been done. Like, I felt like they'd already put a chip in there, but apparently not. This was just recent in the last like week or so. The chip has allowed the monkey to play a game of Pong with only using his mind. I'm guessing maybe a form of telepathy. And the chip was calibrated first with the monkey using the joystick originally to play the game. And then after a couple of minutes, they were able to get him to control it with only using its mind. And he ended up getting very, very, very good at it. That's why they released the information, because if it was bad, they probably wouldn't tell anyone. And you can find a video of the experiment that they did on YouTube, searching monkey mind Pong.
And I believe we do have audio of this monkey.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, and what he had to say about the mind Pong. Yeah, Bubbles there was not very happy about the mind Pong.
That sounded accurate.
So basically, from what I watched the video, and it was really interesting. So they hooked him up to this video game, and they had a joystick there, and they had taught him how to use the joystick to play the Pong, and it's the Atari game Pong, beep, 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 going back and forth. And he basically mastered it with the joystick, and they cut the joystick cord off. There was nothing going to the joystick to control the TV. And they had already put the chip in him, and he continued to play. And so there's nothing moving in that except his brain, his mind, and he did not miss one. He was better than what I could have been.
And that's fucking creepy.
Controlled it completely with his mind, going back and forth like that.
Now, I do believe people can be telepathic, and I do believe in telekinesis and stuff like that, because it's basically just a form of energy, and as I've probably stated before, we're all made up of energy. Energy is what moves things, it's how we move, it's how we exist. So I do believe that those things are possible, but I think it's not natural, really.
I don't like it because of the military implications that they could do that with military.
Yeah, just think
it's crazy you wouldn't have to control rockets with your hands or guns with your hands. That's scary.
Yep, brain. What if your brain starts malfunctioning? How many of these people aren't even in their right mind half the time with PTSD and stuff? And I hate to say that, but the amount of things that we have done to our people in the military, I first of all, I don't trust like that. Secondly, it's not right. It just isn't.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not cool with me. Our next story: a Russian official admits to staging Yeti sightings. According to the New York Post, Amin Tulyayev, who was the governor of Kemerovo Oblast, I'll write this in the notes because I'm sure as hell didn't say that right. From 1997 to 2018, has confessed to fueling interest in Yeti sightings in the Shiora Mountains of Siberia. He held cash prizes on Yeti Day for those who could provide proof. He went as far as finding a tall man, having him wear a fur coat, and have him running up and down the mountains. The guy, however, remains adamant that the Yeti does actually exist, and we have audio from his press conference of him stating that. I thought that added a little bit of insight to his case there. I mean, what did you think? I mean, we talked about this, I think, in our very first show about people being uncredible with evidence, faking this evidence, and then making the whole subject, uncredible.
Well, my whole thing is that why make the statement? Why not just let your people believe that there really was a Yeti out there? Why? That's what I don't get. It's you took so much time and effort, and you even paid a guy to go out there and do it. Why even rip that sense of false hope?
Because he actually does believe in the Yeti. I mean, he said that he believes in it, and he thinks it actually does exist. As thousands of people throughout the Siberia and the Himalayas and things like that. I mean, the Yeti is just as big as a thing of Bigfoot as it is here. You know what I mean?
Well, right, and I think we talked about that too. I just said that the Yeti, we agreed that the Yeti was basically a cousin to Bigfoot. kind of like polar bears and regular bears. They're similar but different. They look different because of their environment. I just think that, you called it a snow squatch.
Yeah, snow squatch. But they do seem a little bit more aggressive from the stories I've read about people being kidnapped and animals being taken.
Well, and I'm wondering if that's because of their environment.
Yeah.
Like maybe potentially they're around less people. They're a little bit more, it's like a rabid dog. If they're not around people, they're going to attack.
I need this muxoskin, and so let me take it so I can eat it and stay in the winter. You know what I mean?
Well, right. Now, I think they might be more aggressive because they're, just like I said, their environment, they're not around people. And so therefore they're just not acclimated. I feel like, especially in the Americas, everything is so, there's not really dense forests anymore. There's a lot of places where we've just forested so much that there just really isn't, we've disrupted their living, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
it's like animals.
Habitat.
Right, and so therefore it has to travel more, and I feel like that's why it has more interactions with us, because, our camping grounds are a little bit more habitable than fucking Russia.
He's like, cash me outside, how about that?
Oh my goodness. Moving on. A man was freaked out by a face in his washing machine this past week.
So the LAD Bible reports that Alex Boardman was doing his laundry when all of a sudden he spotted a face staring at him in his washing machine. It gave the man a panic attack as the face leered out at him. He states, "I forgot I was washing my dog's blanket and David Bowie cushion." The face ended up only being a David Bowie cushion and had stopped perfectly in the machine to show only his face peering out from the door window of the washing machine.
Honestly, that is kind of creepy.
And we do have audio of the man freaking out. Now, this is breaking audio. It has not been seen anywhere else. And you only get it here first. So that was audio of the man freaking out when he saw David Bowie.
Yeah.
I mean, David Bowie is kind of scary, but a lot of people think he's attractive.
I don't think David Bowie is attractive. I think he has a very creepy look.
My cousin Courtney was obsessed with the Labyrinth, like the Goblin King, David Bowie.
Well, I know, but that's even worse because he's even weirder looking there. I don't get it. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy his music or anything like that, but
musical genius.
I don't like the way he looks. No. But I would be freaked out if I saw a fucking face in my washer.
and I'll post a link to the picture. There's a picture of it, and it's literally, he's got like one of those washing machines that have a circle door, and there's a glass door on it.
A front-loading washer.
And it's literally David Bowie like looking out with like both of his hands like, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, that's creepy.
So the big thing we have on this show tonight, and this is a longer show than we usually have. However, we have an interview with a witch. She's a practicing witch. However, she doesn't like to call herself a witch. However, me and you would call her a witch.
We would call her a witch.
We would call her a witch. Mm-hmm. And so this interview with her is almost 2 hours long. However, do listen to it because this girl has so much information that you and me and anybody else that's interested in things like this would love to ask. She's very knowledgeable what she does. She practices it, and she just has a ton of knowledge that she spits out in this interview. So I hope you enjoy it because me and Susan both enjoyed interviewing her for almost 2.5 hours.
Total. I think we actually sat and recorded for over 2 hours. It probably won't be that long when we actually post the podcast. But yeah, and we talked for a while before we even pushed the record button, probably almost 30 minutes. So it is pretty long. We do hope you enjoy it.
I cover every topic that you could ever think of to ask a witch. If you had a one-on-one conversation with a witch, this is probably what it would sound like.
Probably. And it's all genuine. We did not tell her ahead of time like what the questions were or anything like that. So, all of her responses are on the spot and genuine, and that's kind of how we wanted it.
Those questions do flow into each other, and sometimes there's more that she adds to these questions that aren't necessarily the answer or the question. However, it's all very good insight to the spiritual, pagan, witch, Wicca, witchery scene. So I think that that actually added a lot of content, and it was great content, and I hope that you do enjoy it. So we will be right back with this interview, and I hope you do stick around and enjoy it.
Thank you.
And welcome back, everybody. This is the TheNightShade'sEcho, and this week we have a special guest with us. She's a witch. Holy shit, right? Our third podcast, and we've got a fucking witch on our podcast, right? And so her name is Krystal Blaze. If you couldn't have gotten a better witch name than Krystal Blaze, maybe Crystal Luna Blaze, something like that with moons, right? And so,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so here she is. We'll let you introduce yourself to the podcast here.
Yeah. Hi. Yes, my name is Krystal Blaze. While I do consider myself a witch, I do have a lot of thoughts on the actual phrase and utilizing it and using it as a title for yourself and your practice. I'm sure we'll get into that as we go through this conversation and this interview. Thank you so much for having me on the show and this podcast. I'm super excited. But yeah, my name is Krystal Blaze, and on the surface level, I do consider myself a witch. So let's do this.
And we appreciate you coming on.
So
thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, well, you're welcome. For anyone who doesn't know, my name is Susan. And I invited Krystal to come on here. She's one of my best friends. We've known each other for a few years now. And if you guys might know, I have a metaphysical store. And one of the things that we bond about is anything crystal related, anything related to higher ascension, higher conscious type things. So we're super excited to have this interview with her today. She's super knowledgeable, and I hope you guys enjoyed as much as we do.
Oh, and to add to that, yes, absolutely. Susan, you are without a doubt one of my best friends. I actually consider you one of my spiritual mentors. You are one of my sources for getting my crystal and herbs resources and when I need to stock up for any type of event or projects or spell work or anything that I need to do, I immediately check out your store first. Susan has been one of my absolute best friends through this journey, and I do not think I would be where I am today if I didn't have her. So having her on this interview as well and this show as well is very special to me. So I'm very excited.
We'll get right into the questions. We'll get right into the questions. We've got a list here of like, I don't know, about 20, 25, 30 questions, something like that. And we might not get through them, based on how much Krystal wants to answer them. So our first one here is, how long have you been into so witchcraft, and how did you get started in the metaphysical witchery type stuff?
Well, in all honesty, I believe that I've always been involved in it. When I was a child, my mother had an altar, and I didn't really know what it was or what it meant, and she didn't really talk to me about it. And I was always curious. As I went through my toddler, middle school years, teenage years, young adult years, whatever, all of it it was just stuff in movies. To answer your question, I've been actively engaged in it, what I would consider witchcraft or spiritual practice, for over 5 years. However, through that process, I've done a lot of work to realize that I've actually been practicing my entire life. So while I didn't realize it was an active practice, I was doing it. And through the last 5 years, I've realized just how ingrained I was without realizing it. And now I feel, even though it's only been 5 years, which might, some people might say that I'm a quote unquote baby witch. That being said, it's not that I feel like I'm new to the craft. It's just, I take it very seriously. And therefore, yes, it's only been 5 years. However, I do feel like I have been practicing my entire life. So 29 years.
Do you, or have you ever ridden on a broom?
I have 3 brooms in my house. I've taken photo shoots of me riding a broom. I do believe it's possible to ride a broom. However, I do not think that it's a actual feasible thing, because if you are a true witch and you are a true spiritual practice person, I don't even actually know the term for that, riding on a broom is actually really impractical and unnecessary. So I think that's a Hollywood thing.
True, because we got cars. You can go a lot faster with those.
Well, not only that, but if you're a true witch and you've done enough work, you can just astral project yourself to wherever you need to be, and you don't actually need to ride a broom.
And that's actually, I was going to comment on that. I said, I was thinking when you said that was, I wonder if they got this notion, of witches riding on the broom from maybe them astral projecting that they were doing that, or something kind of like, while people can go to sleep and astral project and then, go places and whatnot. Right. And I wonder if that's not had something to do with it.
Well, the broom itself, from a physical standpoint, is a tool in witchcraft and spiritual growth. Especially because you want to pay attention to the materials that make the broom. So when you look back at the history of what makes a broom, obviously it's basically it's a stick with smaller sticks. The nature of it is clearing out what doesn't belong in your home, right? It's cleaning, it's cleansing, you're removing the things that don't need, you're removing dirt, you're removing negative energy, right? Like you're removing what doesn't need to be there. And if you look at the material of it and things like that, a broom can represent a lot of different things from a lot of different perspectives. And therefore the broom itself is a symbol of being a witch, which is funny to me because in my mind, it just represents being a human, because who doesn't want dirt out of their house?
Right.
Who doesn't want a clean home?
That's a metaphor.
So when you look at a broom, it's always funny to me because I always think of the movie Hocus Pocus. And it's funny because, the one gets the broom, the one gets the mop, and the other gets the vacuum. Mm-hmm. And to me, that whole concept is super symbolic of how what used to be, cleanliness meets technology and how society has progressed. Because at one point in society, it was you just sweep. And then all of a sudden they were like, now you have to mop. And then society's like, well, now you have rugs and you have to vacuum. And it's like, oh my God, what's the next Hocus Pocus? You're going to have a fourth witch with a fucking Roomba? Like, what do you do next?
They're going to be they're going to be standing on a fucking Roomba.
Right. And they're going to be like,
I'm loving it.
Just like just spiraling around, like
going around in circles, hitting trees.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're going to like hit a light post and it's going to be like error. To me, it's ultimately all of it centers around cleaning your home is about removing what no longer needs to be there. So the idea of the broom is very symbolic. So your question, have you ridden a broom? Number one, yes, I'm a woman. So yes, I've ridden pretty much everything in my house at one point or another. I also, over 6 months ago, left a long-term relationship and have never lived alone outside of that. So yes, I have ridden a lot of things in my house, including my broom, because I'm a curious woman. I think that people should be. That being said, not in the sense of like, I'm not practical magic over here, right? Like I didn't mount
Practical
my
magic.
broom and yeet
Fucking
myself to
levitate.
Canada.
Yeah. Well, this kind of plays into the next question. How does religion play in your craft, and are you religious? And that could be, you know, any type of religion,
Oh, this is my
or just
favorite
spiritual.
I do not consider myself religious. I consider myself spiritual. Religion plays a part in my practice in the sense of research, understanding, respect, and acknowledgement. I acknowledge, respect, and research every religion that I can, no matter what. Ultimately, I do feel that religions and then the concept of them are guides for us to live our lives in whatever capacity we as individuals choose. With that being said, I have gone to many different churches, many different events. I've talked to many individuals. I intend to do the same, because even if you talk to two people who consider themselves the same belief system or same religion or anything like that, they still have a different perspective.
I agree with that.
To me, thank you, Susan. To me, that is one of the things that makes being a human the most beautiful part of it. Because you can have the same belief system and still apply it in different ways and appreciate it in different ways. That being said, I also think that that same concept can be applied on the negative side. People can consider themselves a certain religion, and they can really do some damage to the world and to themselves and their families, and to others with that same concept. It's just the mere concept of coexisting with different belief systems, different religions, different spiritual paths, and having that free will to choose and that mental capacity to associate and perceive it as whatever we choose as individuals is the true beauty of being a human, is what I believe. So to answer your question, religion plays a huge part in my practice because I acknowledge as many as I can. I also come from a place of, again, respect, acknowledgement, curiosity, things like that. However, in my particular practice, I do not have a set belief system. I do not only work with Greek. I don't only work with Egyptian. I don't only work with Norse. I don't only work with Christian. I work with, and in my craft, my practice personally, I communicate with different entities from several different religions.
I think we've seen a big decline in organized religion, at least over the last 20 years or so. There's a ton of people who've just gone spiritual instead of being in a church. And I honestly think that's a great thing. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast or not, but my dad was a Baptist minister until I was about 16 years old. So I grew up in a very, very religious home. I did fucking devotionals and did the song leading and all that good stuff, you know. And in fact, when I met Susan, I was, I'm 30 years old now. However, I had so much of that ingrained in me, and I still do, even though I don't believe it anymore. But
Well, as you're speaking, I can tell that while you were going through that, you were always curious.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember reading the Harry Potter books, like some of the first books I ever read. I mean, in school.
Hufflepuff for life.
And that was such a bad thing. I remember the church having, sermons over fucking Harry Potter. There's magic and you can't do that shit,
Oh, basically. We had that too at my church too.
And so when I met Susan, I actually was kind of like, ooh, you got juju, doing Reiki and all that shit. I still won't let her do Reiki on me.
She, when we first got together, they used to make fun of me, okay? But listen,
voodoo and all that good shit.
They used to say what I did was like bad juju stuff, which they were just giving me a bunch of shit. But it actually made me feel really bad there for a while because I was like, I didn't mean to impart this on you. That's not my intention.
Because ultimately you're trying to just once you realize the nature of what you're doing, being a spiritual person, you know that you ultimately are a source of light.
Or you can decide that that's not what you want to be. But I think for the most part, I think most people just want to be good people and want to do good things and you know what I mean, and just exist without all this drama.
You try to share that with people, and then they want to come at you and say, "That's not what you're doing. You're doing bad things." You're just like, "Wait, what? No." And then you end up becoming an introvert and going through, all the human society associated terms. You're an introvert, you're an ENFP or whatever, like you're giving these titles or these labels of who you are. And the reality of it is you just wanted to share what you know. And because there's not an actual physical, tangible, evidence-based, scientific-based, whatever thing that can say, yes, this is real, you are basically highlighted and titled and labeled weird. Well, and therefore that makes anything that comes out of your mouth wrong.
Then, and in the church, you're taught not to question things because questioning things was of the devil. And so...
there are 3 churches on this planet that I am banned from because I ask questions.
I'm interested to hearing more about this at a later date. That is actually really hilarious.
Yeah, bring it. Bring the action. Sorry, TikToker.
So I personally have been dabbling more into just overall paganism as a cultural type thing. For me, I've got deep roots in Scotland and Ireland and Scandinavia and things like that.
I'm happy to hear you say paganism because one of the things that I personally have been looking into is whether or not I want to consider myself pagan or Wiccan.
Right.
There really is a difference.
Well, that's a part of the question. That's part of an upcoming question, Susan. Shh.
Oh, okay. No, go ahead. No. That's I just want to make it known that even now, 5 years of actual active conscious practice and 29 years of knowing that I've been in it, I still do not know which one I want to be involved in or if I even want to be one. I mean, at this current moment, I consider myself an eclectic witch because I pull different practices from different things, which is why earlier, I said respect and acknowledgement are the 2 most important things. Because as long as you respect it and you acknowledge it, you're pretty much safe to research it. It's not until you actually start practicing it that things can get a little dicey. And I know there's a lot of historic and like cultural things. For example, the term gypsy, right? A lot of people are, I'm a gypsy. The term gypsy is actually a culture and a group of people
It's ethnicity.
Yeah, they honor that very proudly, as they should. I myself, when I first started this journey, obviously like any millennial or person with access to the internet, made an Instagram account, and my original handle was Another Gypsy Queen, because I thought it was a tongue-in-cheek thing, because like everyone online is, I'm a gypsy, and I thought it was very tongue-in-cheek, like I'm just another gypsy queen, because everyone's like, I'm a queen. Once I researched and heard that the term gypsy is a unique culture in Romanian history, with people who still practice that with pride, I realized what I was doing, and that meant that handle, that name that I was using, that username, whatever that I was using, is part of the problem. So I changed it. And so this whole concept of like, are you pagan, Wiccan, gypsy, these are just words that are associated with cultural groups and belief systems that we are all involved in, and that there are people out there who are so ingrained in it, who really hold it to heart. And those people need to be heard. They need to be respected. They need to be understood. They need to be, when I say heard, I don't just mean like just listen in a conversation. We actually need to give that energy. So I think that,
I think that actually is a great segue into the very next question. What are your thoughts on the negative bias from the media about witchery, witchcraft, paganism?
Oh, Jesus Christ. For the record, I'm just going to pin in that for a second. I say, oh, Jesus Christ. If I say anything like that, it's not because I'm calling to him or anything like that. It's just society and my upbringing. That's like my go-to, like, oh, gee, oh, fuck. Okay. All right. Well, oh my God. Like, I'm a firm believer in, switch the perspective or shift it. Anyway, unpin. All right. So the question was, what are my thoughts on the negative bias from the media about witchcraft, right?
Yeah, or paganism, or
yeah,
the whole shebang.
I think that from a media perspective, my thoughts are there is a mass misunderstanding of what paganism, Wiccan, spiritual practice. I think there's a mass misunderstanding of what we really do. I can't tell you how many times I've told someone that I practice tarot, and they immediately thought that like I'm a Satanist.
That's funny because, when I found out Susan did that, I was like, I don't know about that. And then, my parents, they're not in the church anymore, and they've, grown a lot since being out of the church. And even them, they were like, it's got a bad juju.
Well, it's hilarious to me because the Church of Satan, the Satanic Bible, the 11 Satanic Rules, and actual Satanists
don't believe in the devil, right?
No, they don't worship the devil at all, because fun fact, the devil doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Like the devil, it doesn't actually exist. I know I just said that. I want to reiterate, like, he doesn't actually, whatever that entity is, he, she, they, whatever, doesn't actually exist. To Christians, and I'm sorry if I'm crossing lines here or if I do offend anyone, email me directly. Let's have a conversation. Yeah, like, I basically, from what I understand at this current moment in my life, hell is ruled by Lucifer, who was an angel that got basically demoted because he didn't want to adhere to God's rules, right? Which I think is super fucking hilarious, considering like the fourth person that God created literally killed the other one. So
That's
I
because
really
he
don't
may be a
understand
metaphor for Icarus.
that. Right? Also, we're not even getting into the conversation about Lilith. Anyway, in my opinion, I think there's a mass misunderstanding, and I think there's a mass a lack of research. Okay, let me phrase it this way. I apologize for my back and forth. I think that the media has created this concept that if you don't do what everyone else is doing or everyone else says is right, you are immediately put to this bad place, ruled by this bad thing who will, do whatever to you. It's your worst nightmare, whatever. I think the reason that the media has done that is because they want you to think if you don't do what they say you need to do, you are a bad person, and therefore bad things are going to happen to you after you die.
That sounds really scary, though.
Huh?
I said that sounds really scary, though.
Well, and that's what they want you to think. Like
It's a guilt trip.
It's a guilt trip. It's funny enough, it's basically like being in an abusive relationship without knowing it's an abusive relationship.
Definitely.
Like, tell me you're in a narcissistic relationship without telling me you're in a narcissistic relationship. Religion.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, even the church itself references itself as the bride. So.
Right. I mean, you're going to sit here and tell me that as long as I dress up and I arrive at a building every Sunday at 9 or 10 a.m. and I put $1 in a basket and I eat a piece of cracker and take a sip of whatever and I sing the songs and I listen and I, bow my head or I kneel or whatever, you're going to tell me that is what's going to save my soul?
Yeah, you're supposed to practice cannibalism,
Right, yeah. Well, oh my God, I love that you said that. Yes, exactly. Like the hypocrisy behind the whole thing is what really gets me.
It's funny because they actually use witchcraft because in Catholicism, when you partake of the bread or cracker or wafer or whatever the fuck, and the grape juice or wine, that transforms into the body and the blood of Christ inside of you. You ingest Christ's body and blood. That actually, in their minds, that transforms into an actual physical thing. So they perform cannibalism every Sunday, which is like the ultimate sin.
Yeah. And the funny part is two parts. Number one, their whole mindset is that Christ is in your heart. Like he's you. You're him. Like you're connected. The second part is the concept of taking another item from the world, whether it's a cracker, bread, wine, water, whatever, and then allowing that to transform into something else that gives you power is one of it's a witch practice.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. Like, again, like I said earlier, the hypocrisy behind it blows my mind. And then they have the audacity to say that, oh, you practice witchcraft, you're a Satanist. Okay, first of all, two different things, bro. Okay, sit down, Karen. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Also, take a look in the mirror before you make a judgment call about me and my life. And maybe take a moment to actually research. You're so quick to Google the manager of certain restaurants, but you won't Google the actual meaning of things.
So
I'm not sorry about anything of things that I said because it's true. And it's not just Karens. I mean, it's parents. I mean, there are so many people out there who have found this path and their parents completely have rejected them. I myself went through a process with my own family when I basically, it's funny because I'm a bisexual woman. Me telling my family I was bisexual was not something that I told them because I didn't feel it was a necessary conversation. It's just, this is who I am. I can either bring a boyfriend to a family event or I can bring my girlfriend. I don't need to have a conversation about it. When I told my family that I was exploring paganism and Wiccan, and I read tarot cards, and I'm practicing my mediumship, and I'm developing all of these skills, that was a bigger deal to them than my sexuality. And I just found that really weird. And I still find it weird. Why is it such a big deal? We're not a religious family. Why does it matter? It's a very unique and weird thing. However, I want to hear the next question. I'm excited now.
We were just actually looking at each other. I said that you talked a lot.
That's fine, though. That's exactly what I want right now.
I warned him ahead of time.
Well, I'm also very vain and I'm obsessed with myself.
This is exactly what I wanted.
She's also very upfront about that too. Now, well, in this, all of our questions kind of go into each other in one way or the other. One of our bigger questions is how can you tell if someone who calls themselves a practicing witch is legit or not?
There's a bunch of legit fake ass hoes that are practicing to be crystal gemstone witch people.
Before I answer that, I don't know why I have. Well, I know why because I'm a practicing witch. What was the next question before I answer that?
That's the next question.
Oh, that is okay. Good.
I think it's right now. It's really trendy to say that you're a witch and whatnot.
Yeah,
especially on Instagram and things like that.
This is a great question. Okay, so number one, even though I consider myself an eclectic witch, I actually really don't like that term because in my mind and my belief system and the research that I've done, the term witch is like earlier we were talking about the term gypsy, right? Like it's a culture, it's a process. It's almost like you have to go through you can't just like wake up one morning and go, I'm a doctor, right? Like you have to go through a process of education, training, practice, like you have to go through a journey in order to get that title. And that title is given to you by others who have done that. And for me, I simultaneously believe that we are all witches. And that term itself, to be an actual witch, you cannot actually claim that unless you go through that process on whatever level. Like if you want to be a Norse witch, a green witch, a sea witch, a kitchen witch, whatever. You have to go through that.
We have a kitchen witch.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, he's meaning like we have a kitchen witch. She sits on our shelf. A lot of times it's they've been used in the past to help protect your home, to help her like prevent house fires and stuff like that. So we found one randomly. Like I grew up, my stepmom, I call her my mom, my second mom. She had a kitchen witch growing up. And I always loved it. I didn't know actually all that much about it. I just knew it was there. And then when she moved and I was older, I asked her about it and she told me more about it. Randomly, I found one at a Goodwill Bins
in the ghetto of St. Louis.
I mean, literally ghetto. I mean, this place, you got to wear gloves and stuff to be able to go and dig through this stuff. And it just was sitting there. And I think I paid like nothing for it. And she's been like sitting with my plants on my windowsill, making sure I don't have any house fires.
So we snatched her.
Nice. No, that's beautiful. I'm very happy that you went through that experience and found that, because things like that happen when you start to open yourself up to accepting the gifts and the signs from the universe and spirit and your guides. I'm really happy to hear that you have that. Also, I'm going to go ahead and send some positive vibes to your kitchen witch that you don't have any house fires.
Oh yeah, same here. Now, I just want to touch on something real quick before you finish what you were saying, in regards to that you call yourself a witch, but you also deep down don't believe that you're a witch. Sometimes it's almost easier just to kind of give like a blanket name, because a lot of people they'll ask, but they don't really even really understand some of those terms.
A lot of people want to give themselves labels. I mean, we're from a generation in a society where, like, are you male? Are you female? Are you a Hufflepuff or a Slytherin? Are you where are you on this spectrum? Everyone wants to have a label.
Right. And a lot of people assume that I'm a witch. I do not believe that I am. I don't practice. I've never studied. That's not something I've been interested in. I mean, I do consider myself extremely spiritual. I grew up in a Christian household and stuff like that. Right. But being spiritual is like it's its own thing. And like I said, people just assume that I'm a witch, and I always have to correct people, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I promise. And a lot of people do use it in a derogatory way. Oh, oh, you're a witch. Ooh.
You just like shiny rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love crystals. And I did go through like a spiritual awakening. And I've went through a process, but I have not been through the process of like researching or learning, the practice. And I don't know if that's something I want to do at some point. Maybe just to understand a lot of my customers better, because a lot of my customers do consider themselves witches.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to put that out there, because I do think I do think people get a bad connotation with the term witch. And so some people don't even want to consider them, they don't want to say that they're witches, even if they do practice, because they don't want people to think bad of them. Which I think is kind of unfair, because sometimes I look at Christians and I'm like, ooh.
Well, yeah. Well, and for example, two things. Number one, you can be a Christian and a witch. Like, you can be both.
Do you really believe that, though? And I say that just for the fact that because most Christians wouldn't consider themselves witches, because of how they consider that to be ungodly. So I don't think you can be both. I think you can take away and say, I have Christian values, like don't murder people.
However, I'd like to interject that Christians do use witchcraft in prayer and being possessed by the Holy Spirit.
I'm not saying that that's not true.
Whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, definitely. I think we covered that, just a little bit earlier.
Well, and like I said, I don't think that that's not true. I mean, when you lay hands, you're literally performing acts of magic.
Right.
I lay hands on people.
Not only that, but a lot of Christian holidays are actually centered from
And we'll get into that in just a minute.
Yeah. So, real quick, Brian, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Susan, my second thing was, you mentioned like you are into crystals and you have your metaphysical shop, and I get a lot of my crystals and things from you. Crystals, for example, which is another reason why I love my name. I'm going to hair flip myself real quick. The belief is that crystals have properties associated to each one based on several different aspects. And Susan, you do a great job in your metaphysical shop and your personal life and the way that you explain things, where you acknowledge that each crystal that you sell or you stock has a property that you do a great job of explaining the properties and the aspects and the things that the crystals can help with. So from that perspective, to answer your question, like when I said, you can be a Christian and a witch, and you said, do you really believe that though? I do believe that, only from the sense of Christians, people who consider themselves Christians, label themselves as a religious Christian person. They can be a witch, because even though I think being a witch, a real one, requires a process, I do think that you can practice a spiritual element of witchcraft and be a Christian. If you want to work with God, Jesus Christ, the Virgin Mary, things like that, you can do that, and that's what you intertwine with your practice. That's your choice, and you can do that. That's the magic. That's the true magic of witchcraft, is your relationship with your craft is up to you. No matter what religion you want to tie in, that's up to you. This is where I bring back earlier where I say it's all about respect and acknowledgement. As long as you have those two things and you have a heart of gratitude, you're a good person, you're good to go. Practice away. Fly away.
And I know that we've gotten a little bit off topic, but do you have any ways to know if someone who's calling themselves as a witch really is one, or if they're just saying that as like a label?
Can you like feel their vibe? Say, hey.
Yeah, that was the question. Like, how do you tell if they're legit or not? Okay, so a little bit about me. So I work in marketing and social media and websites and all that. Like I work in that. And I do think that it's a little serendipitous for me that I work in that, because I can look at a profile or a page or a website and look at, from like a personal point of view, and I can say like, you're legit or not. I think ultimately you can tell if a person is legit or not when they call themselves a witch based on their intentions. I also think that if you look at their level of consistency, you can tell. To me, I think the people who associate things like their hair color, the style of their nails, their tattoos, the bracelets they wear, the necklaces, their attire, people who associate with their physical trying to be a witch versus actually being one is what separates it. For example, I have an old friend that I'm still Facebook friends with them, and I distinctly, and I actually have screenshots of it because I'm a petty bitch. There was a time where she was a certain way on online, on social media, the nature of her posts and stuff. And over time, she has changed. And then there was one day where she posted a photo of her where she dyed her hair black, and she got coffin styled nails and got some like new necklaces and stuff. And the caption on the photo she posted was, "The witch is back." And now all of a sudden she thinks that she's a witch. And she talks about how she works with her oracle cards, and she's got crystals, and she's got new plants. And it's like, okay, it looks like you're just doing this for aesthetic purposes and like you're seeking attention. And that's not the same as someone who comes across as you can walk the walk and talk the talk, but you have to at least be aware. You have to hold yourself accountable and responsible for your practice. And there are a lot of people out there who just want to say, I'm a witch. okay, cool, congratulations. What, you light a white candle every now and then? You've got some
Right.
citrine next to your bed? That's not the same. At the end of the day, witchcraft and the whole journey itself is more internal. Crystals, tarot, oracle, spirit boards, incense, those are all tools. You don't actually need any of that to be a witch. So
Right.
to answer your question, how do you tell the difference? Honestly, as weird as this sounds, trust your instincts. If you want to get to the deeper level of it, look at the reviews, look at the page, you know,
Right. Right.
like read the captions.
You
Trust
can
your instincts.
So you can basically tell if this bitch is fake or not, right? Like just by looking at her almost.
Oh, well, yeah, 110%. You can absolutely, especially like even for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've like told someone, like, especially because I like to go out, I like to go to bars and whatever. Obviously, COVID is a unique situation, but I can't tell you how many times I've told someone that, you know, I read tarot, and they're like, "Oh my god, I have this bracelet. Look at it's rose quartz. It's going to help me find my true love." I'm just like, okay.
Right.
Or I'll say, yeah, right. Yeah, that's not how it works. But there was one situation in particular where I told someone that I read tarot, and they were like, "Oh my god, I love that. I'm also a witch." I'm like, "Whoa, I didn't say I was." Also, the fact that you are telling me that you are one is a little concerning. And she was like, "Oh my god, I am so much a witch. I have this by my bed, and I meditate, and I do yoga, and like I spin my coffee to the right." And I just, as she was talking about it, I'm just looking at her like, I don't know what it is, but there is something blocking you from actually being one, because I think you don't actually believe in the things that you're doing, and that's gonna fuck you up more than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
So do you celebrate any of the pagan holidays like Samhain or Ostara?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely celebrate the Sabbath. I also, I celebrate the Sabbath. I also work with the moon and her phases.
Mm-hmm.
I do celebrate as much as I can to the best of my abilities at that time. Sometimes I can't do everything that I'd like. However, even as it's happening, even if I can't do what I want, for example, like Ostara, you know, you want to put, soil and egg and put seeds in it and plant it. Even though I can't do that, the concepts and the ideals that are stemming from what Ostara represents are mentally happening. And I'm really proud and happy that just naturally happens for a lot of people. Actually, oddly enough, every job I've ever had since I got out of college, April is one of those months where I leave. Like every job I have had, April is when I leave. And the reason being is because that falls in Ostara leading up to Beltane. And that is the time where you plant the seeds of new beginnings and you get rid of everything else. And then you go into Beltane, and it's like this whole like upward lifting process. And again, like I said, I've been actively practicing for 5 years, been involved with it for my whole life, because that is a prime example of, yes, I do celebrate the holidays. It's just like Samhain, for example, like Sabbaths are not one day. It's several weeks, if not months, for each one.
And I'm glad you pronounced this Samhain instead of Samhain.
Oh, that's a big reason why I refused to watch the reboot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, because they said Sam Hain, and I was like, excuse me?
I've got like this kind of weird story that happened with us. So I've celebrated this last Halloween. We celebrated Samhain, and we didn't really get to do Yule because we were moving during the week of Christmas. And then I did celebrate Ostara. And so on Samhain, we baked traditional like German cookies, the soul cakes.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we left the front the door. Our front door was to the west, or to the west. So you're supposed to leave your door open and leave like food out for your spiritual guests, right? And so, or like your family members who have moved on. And so we made these cookies and stuff. I didn't want to leave food out, so I left the cookies out on in a Ziploc bag on our one of our like a cabinet, and we left the door unlocked.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Next morning, I go in there. The cookies had been unzipped from the Ziploc bag, and the door had been shut. And Susan was not up yet. The kids weren't up yet, and I had invited my grandfather, who had passed in 2012. And so I invited him in the night before.
Well, sorry for your loss.
Well, this was, he's been passed away for almost 10 years now. But I thought it was interesting because I placed these cookies right in front of a picture of him. And they just so happened to be opened and moved around a little bit. So I don't know if he came in and took a cookie, because there was been something that he would have loved. He loves cookies and, cakes and things like that. So I thought that was very interesting.
Actually, it was really creepy because I was like, I didn't even know you'd put cookies there. Because he was like, oh my God, did you move that? And I'm like, move what?
And it moved like a full couple of inches, like the whole bag moved.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even know it was up there. Because it's not like a low cabinet. It's tall. Like I can't.
The kids can reach it.
Yeah, the kids definitely couldn't reach it.
So I know we haven't really gotten into this part yet. Recently, one of the parts of my practice that I've been working with is my mediumship, where I have done 6 or 7 different medium readings, because I'm trying to allow myself to open that gate, if you will. And as you were telling that story, I did feel energy similar to what you were talking about. And when you were talking about the cookies, my stomach almost like had this big like gut laughter, like those laughs that are just like so genuine that they come from your gut, like those belly laughs.
My grandfather had a really deep, like jolly laugh.
Yeah,
it was very loud.
Well, I love that you said jolly, because one of the images that came to my brain was Santa, so that's fine.
He had a big mustache.
Anyway, yeah, as you were talking about that, I did feel that. So I don't. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is being careful of how I say things, especially as a journalism major. Words are very important to me. Communication is very important to me, and I take that seriously. So when I have started these readings, it's been very interesting to me, because when I do a medium reading, whoever I'm doing the reading for, and whoever they're trying to connect with, they'll ask questions like, are they okay? And it's like, well, that's like a very human society constructed phrase. Like, of course they're okay. However, that's not actually what they want to say. That's not what they want to communicate. Once you've passed, spirits communicate with us in weird ways because we don't understand how to understand them. Mm-hmm. So anyway, on to the next question. I just wanted to say that as you were talking about the cookies, yes, I did feel a male energy and this like guttural belly laugh. And then I also felt like a little like, not a punch, but like a little like, how sometimes like your grandpa will just kind of like give you like a little nudge on the shoulder, mm-hmm. like a little, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a little,
I get it.
Yeah. I did feel that as well. So to your point, and I love that you shared that story, because things like that are unique and rare and they're personal.
Well, and another thing
more often.
Another thing that happened just here in April, With Ostara, we did get soil. We planted some plants out in the front yard. And what was it, like just a couple of days later, I got a email. Okay, so I do graphics, and I had contacted a minor league baseball league about doing some graphics for them, just out of the blue. Like, I was like, hey, you might like this. So they emailed me back, said, hey, no, we can't really use it at the moment because of how the league operates with its players. So there's like a contract rule where you can't do it. So we did those Ostara, went on. It'd been a couple days later. He calls me on my phone because I left my resume just randomly. This commissioner of the league, he's like, hey, I've got a job for you. And so they wanted to interview me. I interviewed him with him and a GM of one of the teams here locally. And I was hired as of this last week to be part of their social media directors. And that was completely out of the blue. Completely, because I was not applying for a job. I was not applying for anything. And he was like, hey, I've got a job for you. Randomly, the guy didn't know me. I didn't know him. And now I am, not necessarily the director, but I am the head of the social media of this entire baseball league. And it's something I'm very passionate. I am obsessed with baseball. And it's been my life goal to work somehow in baseball with something I do.
All right, go ahead.
So that just so happened to coincide with what we did with Ostara. And I was like, holy fucking shit. Because not only did we have an interaction with Solomon, we had one with Ostara as well.
Yeah, within like
within a couple of days. And I was not expecting it at all.
Ostara is not just a day.
Yeah.
Like Sabbaths are weeks to 2 months, depending on which one it is.
And that whole process was about almost a month.
Yeah.
From when I initially contacted him, for him saying no, and then him recontacting me like a week and a half later, to me having the interview, and then the meetings happening, and I got voted in.
I mean, and it's, we were trying for new beginnings, because that's what it's all about, and
just trying to find a break,
Right. And I think, when you're the one who planted, it wasn't even me.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with it. That was kind of like your project, and I'm like, please don't make me do it.
Yeah.
Please. And so I love plant. I don't have a green thumb though. I love plants, but I don't have a green thumb. Okay.
So we've got 4 pots out in the front yard that are growing just random flowers.
Yep. And but he did it himself. And I thought it was interesting that literally within days.
Within the same week. Like, it was like, what the fuck? It was on Wednesday, and I did that on Sunday.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just one of those things
That's
where,
amazing.
It's kind of, you reap what you sow. And that's such a literal term.
'Cause I'm still trying to find whatever I believe in. I grew up as Christian, and I don't believe that anymore. I'm just trying to find my own shit. Now, there's a spot in the Bible that says, search out your own salvation, and I do use that. Whatever that salvation is and whatever you do in that searching is up to you. And I don't use it as a Christian thing.
I love the way that you say that, because I do believe that ultimately, like, even if you decide one day, if you go, okay, I've done enough research, I've done this, I'm a pagan, or I'm a Christian, or I'm this, and you practice that for a while, one of the beautiful, magical parts of being a human is you can, in fact, change your mind. You can change that. You can adapt. You can evolve. You can bring what you've learned to what you're going to be tomorrow. I also believe that you don't have to pick a certain thing. You can just be human. You can just exist. You can just, what are your religious beliefs? Well, I don't know.
Be good. Don't hurt people. Be good. Then other than that, I don't give a shit what people do.
That's what I was going to say to you. Is you mentioned that like you grew up in a Christian household. I encourage you to actually look. You know how for Christians they have like the 10 Commandments, right?
Yeah.
I encourage you to actually research the 11 satanic rules.
Yep.
Because those 11 satanic rules are actually very beautiful. The Satanic Bible is actually a very beautiful book. I read it every year, at least once. I also read the Bible every year. It's a book. I have several books that I read every year, just to refresh myself and educate myself, because ultimately if someone were to ask me, Krystal, what is your religion? My religion is growth and education.
I guess I would be agnostic. I believe that there's something out there. What that is, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely identify myself as agnostic.
Yeah. So there's a higher power, but what the fuck that is, who knows, right?
Right. Well, my problem with agnostic is that it indicates that you only believe in one higher power.
Well, then I'm a multi-agnostic dimensional believer. Whatever it is, whoever it is.
I ultimately, I believe in everything.
Right.
There's nothing that I don't believe in. Like if you walked up to me and you said, there are aliens living on this little piece of rock, I'd be like, okay.
They're called Venezuelans.
Where can I research it? What do I need to know?
The Venezuelans, they're from
Venus. The other day, I saw this thing on Facebook the other day about Cthulhu. And basically the concept was, actually, you know what? I can't remember. Hold on. The thing was, like if I was standing in my house and I got off the couch or out of my bed and there was a circle of ants and there was like this little piece of bread in front of me, what would I do with that? And the concept was if humans, gather around and present an offering, what would you do with that? Like that's basically what gods deal with all the time. Gods, goddesses from any religious background. What would you do if you woke up one day and there was a little koala bear giving you a bamboo stick? Like, what would you do?
Freak the fuck out.
Freak the fuck out.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's any creature. I mean, that's why I don't deal with the Fae, because every time the Fae tries to give me anything, I'm like, nope.
That's one of my absolute favorite things to look into is the Fae in general.
Oh.
Fae and trolls and the Norwegian stuff. I love it.
Thing to research. It's just terrifying because again, this is what it comes down to. I know I repeat myself. Respect and acknowledgement. The Fae is a beautiful, wonderful entity,
and they will fuck you up.
However, their rules, the way that they work, the way that they think, we can't understand as humans unless we do the work to do so. So therefore, when they give you a gift and you're like, "Oh, this is pretty, I'm going to take it," you have no idea what contract you just signed.
I like to believe that the Spiderwick Chronicles was a documentary.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
It was a great freaking movie.
I'm pretty sure it's not based off a book. Yeah, but I haven't read the books.
It's fucking awesome. It's like a whole world.
Ultimately, it's a fantasy world that was written by a human being who went through an experience, who created it into that thing. Which, honestly, again, one of the most amazing parts about being a human is you can go through one thing, you can get one thought, and you can turn it into a freaking franchise. I mean, talk about J.K. Rowling. Like,
yeah, I mean, we love the Lord of the Rings stuff, J.R.R. Tolkien. These people get this high. Yeah. I like to think that these people are tap into some interdimensional higher knowledge and are able to create these worlds, literal worlds, like J.R.R. Tolkien. I mean, his stuff was just enormous how big his world and languages and stuff were. And, and like the Spiderwick Chronicles and like Harry Potter and things like that. I mean, these people are able to do this, and I think that they tap into some type of energy that, just so happened to be sent to them.
Yeah, 110%. I agree with you fully. I think that even if they don't realize what they're doing or what they're opening up to people, they are in fact portals for us to explore and question.
Now, do you have an altar with candles and stuff?
I have several, actually. I have what I consider my working altar. It's my one that I have my grimoire. I don't have a book of shadows. I have a grimoire that I make myself. still a work in process, 3 years in. I have that opened up on a nice little book stand, and a little tray with crystals. And above it, I have this little board with like hemp wire going across it with little clips, and I pull a card of the day and I clip it on there. And I have some other little fun things for the season and whatever. I have my living room altar, which is my main one because I know that I like to entertain, so I like to have guests over. So it's the one that I want people to interact with or see. So I've got like several decks, a couple of statues, etc. And then I have my main altar, which I work with all the time. By the way, Susan, my living room altar, the cover of it is the cloth that you sent me. And yes, I ensure that nothing blocks her image. She covers it perfectly. She's right in the middle, and I have plenty of space on both sides. It's actually really beautiful. I love having that. And then I like I said, I have my bedroom main altar, where I work with whichever goddesses that I'm working with. I've got parts of it that are dedicated to different gods and goddesses that have been with me for years or months. In all honesty, though, my entire home is my altar.
That makes sense.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So yes, I do have several different altars. However, I consider my entire home an altar, so I don't take myself so seriously where it's like no one can touch this. Blah 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 blah. I do have several working things, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes there's a full moon, and I know I need to do like some spell work, and I need to burn some shit and light a candle, and I need to do all this. Sometimes I just say, you know what? Okay, I'm just gonna sit here and watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine for 3.5 hours and then pass out. Like it doesn't really matter. Those things are altars and the tools of crystals, candles, incense, cards, cartomancy, pendulums. But all of those things are tools that you can use to amplify what your goals are. As long as you have the truest intention, you're good to go.
Do you use any potions, and do you have a big black cauldron?
That is what we really want to know.
I think most people would probably want to know that.
Well, okay. So,
I was going to say potions could also be a tincture. I think a lot of people are getting into those with herbal medicines.
No, that's a great question. I don't have any potions. I do have spell jars that I make for whatever I'm doing. I do have a couple clients who will reach out and say, can you make a thing for me to make this better or help me accomplish this goal, and I'll make a spell jar. So potions, no. Because I think the concept of potions is more of a Hollywood thing than it is like a real thing. Because like anything, all of the research I have done, nothing talks about potions. Because potions are no, just yeet, like just no, no. I don't have any potions. Big black cauldron. I guess to answer that, yes. I do have a black cauldron that I use where it's not big. It's actually very small, and even though it's small, it still costs me $45 because cauldrons are not cheap.
Yeah, they're really not.
Yeah, they're
it's like cast iron or something.
It's insane. My cauldron, however, I put a charcoal disc at the bottom, and then I use herbs depending on what I'm using it for.
That kind of goes into the next question here. Do you use any of the following items? Eye of newt, toe of frog, wool of bat, or tongue of dog?
Jesus fucking Christ. No. Although, oddly enough, all of the things that you just mentioned are holiday decor items that were jars with labels with all of the things that you mentioned that I do have around my house.
Right.
My cotton balls.
Send me a picture of that.
Yeah, my cotton balls are eyes of newt. My like tweezers and like skin, like metal, anything metal, like nail files, things like that are in my spider venom. What was the other one?
Toe of frog and
of
wool of
frog.
bat and tongue of dog.
So the dog one has my dog's dog treats. Yeah, so I mean, I have jars that have labels or like decor on them, like vinyl stickers or whatever.
Do you know what a
that
newt
mention
is?
all of those things.
Do you know what a newt is?
Yes, I watched Matilda. Are you
Okay,
kidding me?
great. It's like a brightly colored salamander.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So no, I don't work with any of the following items. However, I do have jars around my house that mention them with common household items.
Now, I have another question for you. Now, are there any rules in witchcraft that you must obey?
My instinct answer is no, because I think that I believe and I feel that your relationship with your craft is your own. However, yes, I think that no matter what you want to practice or get into, you have to respect the history of it. You have to acknowledge what it is and where it came from. And you have to educate yourself. And to add to that, you have to be open-minded to lessons you may learn about what you did wrong. It's kind of like living life, right? You have to hold yourself accountable when you do something wrong.
Correct.
You have to hold yourself accountable if you're repeating a pattern that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Or shows something about you or your ability to be involved. If I had to pick like a pet peeve that I've noticed, I see a lot of people online and on social media who say that like, you can't practice tarot if you're not Romanian. And that drives me nuts. I also see a lot of people who say, like, you can't, whenever you do a reading, you have to, like, smoke cleanse, fire cleanse, water cleanse, air cleanse. You have to cleanse yourself. Like, you have to meditate for 20 minutes. Like, there's so many rules. And to me, rules, the concept and, like, the definition of rules contradicts what spirituality and witchcraft are. Because the whole idea is that you practice looking within by communicating outward. It's as above, so below. Like, it's...
That's gotten really popular, I've noticed here online. People reciting that.
Right.
Oh my God. And they've had, how many movies have they had?
Oh, God.
Oh, I know, so many. You know, and just kind of like following up like what you were saying, you know, do you feel that any part of witchcraft might be dangerous?
Especially for those
110%.
like yeah.
This is why, I know I reiterate and I repeat myself a lot. When I say respect and acknowledgement before you practice, for example, a lot of people are like, you know, I'm into voodoo. I do this and whatever.
Cash me outside with a voodoo. That's some crazy shit.
Again, it's because it's crazy shit only because what you have seen is because people who post it online do not respect, acknowledge before they practice. They
totally
also think it's a joke. They think that like, oh, this conversation right now is exactly why even to this day I have not looked at runes. Runes are from a very specific culture. They represent very specific things, and I do not know enough about them yet for me to practice them or to work with them.
That's smart.
Well, you know, and I wonder, you know, I've had some suppliers that in the past, like I could get runes from, but like they never had a bunch of quantity. And I don't know if it's because runes are dying out or what.
No, runes themselves are definitely an upcoming tool, because that's what I associate with all of these things like spirit boards, crystals, pendulums, tarot, oracle. They're all tools. I just, again, respect, acknowledgement before you practice.
Yeah, and I've never messed with runes. I've never attempted to practice. I don't even know what the symbols mean. So
alphabets.
I don't even want it. Every time I see a TikTok or an Instagram post, I just swipe to the next, because I personally, again, I respect and acknowledge, educate, then practice. And I have not done enough education, self-education, to understand what that is or what they represent, where they come from, what they mean, what power is behind them, that I don't want to get involved in something I don't know. Like, it took me 2.5 years to actually say, hey, I read tarot. Even now, I am working on my mediumship, and I still don't want to announce it on social media or to anybody that doesn't need to know, because I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, I'm still figuring that out on my own. And I think that, you know, to circle back to conversations earlier, this is why I have a hard time saying, hi, I'm Krystal, I'm a witch. I don't like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Well, because then that's putting a label on yourself too, you know.
Right.
If you walk up and say, hey, yeah, I'm a witch, that's what people are going to know you as, instead of like, hey, I'm Krystal, I'm this. Oh, but you know what? I am also a witch. That's as a side thing, not as like a forefront information type thing. Because when I think of you, I think of social media marketing, and I think of like, you know, your job and like what it is that you do. And then I follow up with things like, well, I know she likes crystals, and I know she likes to do tarot and all these other things, but that always comes after what I already know you as. Like, I don't think, oh, Krystal, she's a witch.
Right. Well, and again, that comes back to that conversation earlier about like labels. Like, people want to label themselves. I appreciate, Susan, that you talked about, like, you know, when you think of me, you're exactly right. You know, ultimately when we, okay, so a little bit of a side story. The other night I did a journal prompt, and one of the questions was, what do you want people to feel when they're around you? And the first word I wrote was the word felt. F-E-L-T. I want people to feel felt when they're around me. I want them to feel like I acknowledge them. I hear them. I feel them. I acknowledge their existence. And with what you're saying, and and everything that we've been talking about, that's ultimately like what I want people to come away from when they talk to me or around me, hear about me. I want them to feel like there is at least one person standing physically on this planet who acknowledges, cares, and supports your existence. Because there are a lot of people out there who don't have that, which is mind-boggling to me. Mm-hmm. I want to be that person. I will say this, though. In my opinion and in my eyes and in my belief system, everyone is the most beautiful person I've ever met.
That's right, Susan. I'm beautiful.
You are beautiful. I tell you that all the time.
Oh, well, okay. Number one, let me go ahead and throw this out there because I'm a vain bitch. I am the most beautiful person on the planet. That being said, again, everyone is the most beautiful person on the planet because we have the most beautiful experience that we all chose on some level to be here. And that makes you beautiful. Beauty is the term itself is a society created term that continues to change. I mean, in the 1950s, beauty was one thing. In 2005, beauty was one thing. 2020, beauty was one thing. It's an evolving term with perceptions that we apply to the term. That's on us. That's on us as a society. Mm-hmm. So, yes, to me, every single person is the most beautiful human on the planet. That being said, number one, again, vain bitch. I am the most beautiful person on the planet. And beauty is not about looks. Beauty is about intention. And that's where the witchcraft comes into play. Next question, let's go.
Yeah, I was just about to say, this next little list here are some like quick fire type questions. You can go as little or as in depth if you want to on these. These are like probably common questions that somebody who knows nothing about witchcraft and only has seen it on TV or in movies would ask. Okay?
Right. Bring it.
1, do you worship the devil?
No. Because the devil doesn't exist. I acknowledge Lilith. I acknowledge Lucifer. And I believe that worshiping the devil is not an actual practice. Next.
Do you worship nature?
Yes. I acknowledge it and I work with it every day in some capacity. Might not be the capacity that Pinterest or TikTok or Instagram tells you, but I do worship it in the sense that I appreciate it and I love it and I am grateful that it is involved in my life and I am grateful to call my planet Earth and Mother Gaia. Next.
Do you put spells on people?
No. I believe in free will and I believe in choices.
Do you dance naked under the moon during rituals in the woods?
Once. It was a unique experience, and I do plan on having a yard in my house one day with a privacy fence so that I can do that.
We talked about that beforehand, and I was like,
She said you probably had.
I
was like, people do this, so probably.
Well, in all honesty, it's not about doing it because of any spiritual reason. It's just as a woman, especially, and even as a man, I would imagine being fully naked outside is a weird experience.
Have you ever seen the original Wicker Man? Not the one with Nicolas Cage in it, but the original 1970s movie?
No.
Go watch it. It's great. It delves with a lot of the pagan rituals around May Day.
What's it called?
The Wicker Man.
Wicker Man.
Has Christopher Lee in it. So there's a lot of nudity in that movie, which is kind of shocking for the age of it. But there's a lot of the dancing around the maypole while nude and things like that. I think if people have never seen that movie, definitely check it out. It dives into paganism I mean, it's kind of like
I'm
an
actually
intense,
really
scary
mad 'cause
movie.
I
But
did watch Midsommar, and the maypole scene really pissed me off.
well, this movie is the paganism isn't in a good light. However, it does
Cool.
do a pretty good job of showing some of the rituals and things like that. Number 5, what does your pinnacle mean?
What is what?
Your pentagon or pentacle? I'm not sure exactly what the person who wrote that meant.
Tentacle. Okay.
Yeah, pentacle.
Well, 2 things. Number 1, from a card reading perspective, pentacles represent abundance to me, which
Same here.
whenever I do reading. Huh?
I said same here.
Yeah, atta girl. Well, you are my mentor, so that makes sense. I always communicate with my clients and the people that I'm reading for that abundance can mean different things to different people. Abundance can mean if you're a clock collector, abundance can mean clock. If you are a money person, abundance can mean money. If you are a shoe person, abundance is whatever you decide it means. To me, pentacles represent that. To add to that, that's just from like a card standpoint. Pentacles represent your ability to simultaneously build your foundation and grow from it. That's what it represents to me.
So I'm going to say that it's not an evil symbol, correct?
Oh my God, no. I mean, if you ask me what an upside down pentacle is, yeah, I would tell you that that's a symbol associated with Satanism. And even then, I would tell you it's a beautiful symbol because, again, I respect and acknowledge and adore the Satanic Bible and everything that it represents. It's one of those things where it's all about the perceptions that you place on it.
And a lot of misrepresentation as well. Just about that culture.
Well, like you said with the intents on it,
yeah.
like we were saying with the intentions on it, of course the intentions of Christians would be anti-devil. So they hear Satanism, oh my God, that's the devil, you can't do that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So do you sacrifice animals?
No.
Well, we got to check. Don't check him.
I know that might sound like I was hesitating. I don't sacrifice anything.
I mean, we've just got a couple more questions here, and that's really it.
Yeah, bring it. Let's go.
Can you turn me into a frog?
No.
No? Okay.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm going to after this podcast is over. Bippity boppity boop.
The quick answer is no. However,
there's a however.
However, the reason I cannot turn you into a frog is not because I don't want to or not because I can. It's because ultimately, it's very possible that your past life, you were in fact a frog. And
makes sense.
That's another Hollywood thing. However, you asking that question means that I'm going to go ahead and guarantee you that your next lifetime, you're going to be a frog because you asked that. Actually, you know what? No, I don't want to get into that. Okay, next question.
Okay.
You said it was rapid fire, and I feel like it's like Susan said, I like to talk a lot.
It's fine.
Next
No, totally fine. Number 9, is Hocus Pocus your favorite movie?
No.
No. Oh. The Witches of
Everyone
Eastwick?
gasped and died. There's someone out there literally just went, because you don't.
What's the other witch movie? The Witches of Eastwick?
Practical Magic.
Practical Magic, which is one of my top favorite magical movies. It just is. I love that movie.
Okay, so I'm one of those weird ones. So my actual favorite movie is actually V for Vendetta. I love that movie so much that every 5th of November I throw a party as best as I can. I learn something new every time. The whole concept and even like the historical part of it, like Guy Fawkes trying to blow up Harlem, like I've done much research about it.
It's very relevant for today.
Right. Yeah. It continues to be. Keep in mind that movie came out in 2008. I adore that movie, and it is my favorite movie of all time. The soundtrack, the actors, I love Hugo Weaving and the way that he did V. I love Natalie Portman, the way that she did Evie. I love the letter from Valerie on toilet paper. I love the ending of that letter in particular. I love that movie in so many ways. However, that is my all-time favorite movie. There's no, you cannot breach that line.
Not even with Halloween Town?
My favorite movie. Huh?
Not even with Halloween Town?
No. So, I love that you brought that up. Now, if you ask me, what are your top 5 favorite witch movies? Yes, it would be Practical Magic, Halloween Town, then Hocus Pocus. And the reason being Halloween Town over Hocus Pocus is because in Halloween Town,
that's Debbie Reynolds.
So grandmother says, normal is vastly overrated. One of my favorite quotes.
So our last question here is, it's not even really a question. It's, do you have any tips for people wanting to dabble in the witchcraft and paganism and things like that?
I feel like I'm talking to myself 5 years ago. Number 1, let the process flow. Number 2, respect and acknowledge everything that you come across. Number 3, research as much as you can to the point where you feel empowered enough to talk about it. If you don't understand it enough that you can't teach a middle school class, you don't understand it enough. Educate yourself enough to teach a middle school class. Like, educate yourself to at least be able to communicate to a middle school level. Number 4, be gentle with yourself. Because by the time you get to rule number 4, or my advice number 4, you are probably at the point where you need to take spiritual baths and you're spending too much money and you have no idea what the fuck is going on and you're having breakdowns. So at that point, be gentle with yourself. Number 5, this is my big one. Number 5, keep fucking going. Those are my 5 frickin' advice statements that I can make to someone who is stepping into this. If any of that makes sense. I wish I wrote those down.
I was going to say that I really appreciated the advice, because I'm sure that there's probably going to be several people who are going to listen and, would appreciate anything that you have to share as someone who has been actively practicing for 5 years roughly, and someone who has been living it even unknowingly for way longer than that, So even if you are a baby witch, there's even babyier baby witches out there,
You have experience, and for you to help others with that, I mean, I think they would appreciate your advice. I mean, just from what we've talked about tonight.
It's definitely something that I intend to put out to the universe and put online and in social media in the foreseeable future. I'm doing a little bit of rebranding and things like that. I've had a hard time. I want to say ironically, or it's funny, but I also hate that term. In the beginning of this entire conversation, I said that I have a hard time with the term witch. I have a hard time putting out what I consider myself and the information that I'm comfortable putting out there. That being said, I keep seeing a lot of people do something, and I feel like it's wrong. And that's hard for me to watch. I do intend to put content out there on social media, on the internet, and things like that, to talk about a lot of the things that we have talked about in this call, in this podcast interview. And I'm so excited to see what you guys do with all of this. I can't wait to hear it back. I really have enjoyed this. Anyway, so are those all of the questions?
It is.
That is the end of the questions.
Yay!
Oh my goodness. And just think, we've been recording for 2 hours and
About 10
6.5 minutes. And we talked for almost 30 minutes before that. And I feel like we probably could have gone longer because, we all like to talk.
Right.
But I really appreciate having you on here.
But anytime that you would like to come on and talk about whatever, anything dealing with anything spiritual and metaphysical, anything like that, you're more than welcome. We always, we don't struggle for topic ideas, but it's usually a last minute thing that we're coming up with topics.
Like Ryan, you also seem like the kind of guy who's down for a verbal, not fight, but a verbal confrontation, and I love those.
Don't you do it.
So,
yes, I always,
so ready.
all I do all day long is listen to podcasts about paranormal, spiritual type stuff
I'm
all
so
day
ready.
long. And so, any subject, anything, let me know, and we'll go. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right,
this has been awesome.
Thank you. I had a great time.
All right. Thanks, Krystal. We'll talk later.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
And we'll be right back with the rest of the show. Thank you for listening. So that was a great interview. Did you listen to the entire thing? I mean, that was some major knowledge being dropped by Krystal Blaze, and what an awesome name. I don't think you could find a better name for somebody who is into that type of stuff. Krystal, like a crystal ball and then blazing like fire.
By the way, she wants to emphasize her name's Krystal with a K, not
Krystal
with a C.
with a K for all you out there listening. Like Krystal's like the hamburger joint.
Yes, like that, except better because she's not a hamburger.
She's not a hamburger. So we'd like you to check out all of our links in the show notes. We've got Patreon, we got our Facebook, we've got Threadless. You want a fucking t-shirt with a spider that has the body of an ass and it's pooping green acid slime?
I do not.
It's called the Lufferling, and it's an Indian mythological creature.
I forgot about that.
I want a contest with this picture, and you can get it on a t-shirt.
Now you can get a spider with an ass with hairy balls
It
on
almost
it.
looks, she thinks it looks like balls, but it's a hairy ass with
I
spider
don't
legs.
care what you say, but that's definitely a ball spider with a hairy ball spider.
There's also a shirt of the melon heads. They're like rednecks with major hydrocephalus.
Oh, you can also get shirts with our logo on it.
Yeah,
if
our
you guys
logo.
We love that logo. It's got a tree with, alien in the background picking someone up.
There's a shirt of the Rougarou.
I forgot, what is the Rougarou?
The Rougarou is the Louisiana, Mississippi swamp werewolf skinwalker. Yeah,
Okay.
they're badass. We should do a show on them.
We should. That should be our next topic, is the Rougarou.
And that can be found on threadless.com.
Yep.
Yeah, and everything.
Go get you a shirt.
Yeah, I think they're like $15 starting out. You can get any type of garment. You can get a shirt, you can get socks, you can get a backpack, you can get a skateboard. It's not
Hoodie.
a garment, but sweatshirts.
Tank tops.
And what's cool about this, it's all done by local artists, and we get a cut of that, and they get a cut of that.
Yep. Win-win for everyone. You, the win for us, a win for Threadless.
And
so
for
those
free market.
Yeah, and it's like
And
three
local business,
wins.
small businesses. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, we like small business.
I also have another podcast that I have not plugged on this. It's called Worthy of the Hall. If you like baseball and statistics and trying to find out people who used to play but didn't get the recognition that they needed, probably were Hall of Famers, but nobody ever fucking talks about them, go to Worthy of the Hall. That also can be found on Apple, Spotify, any other streaming platforms.
Yep, we're on most most major ones. So iHeartRadio, I'm pretty sure
Pandora.
Amazon Music, technically, like that's what it's called to find their podcast.
Google Music. All you have to say is, hey, Alexa, play The Nightshades Echo.
And it'll take you to us. You're welcome. I did just want to say that, again, we know that this was an extremely long podcast, way longer than what we normally do. But we appreciate every single one of you taking the time to listen. And if you would let us know either on like one of our streaming platforms that you use, if you did listen to it all or what your thoughts were about having this interview, we'd like to have more interviews in the future. And
you can email us at nightshadeechos@gmail.com. Tell us what you think. If it was like a bunch of bullshit, tell me it was a bunch of bullshit. If you liked it, if you liked Krystal, if you like us, let us know so we know. Yeah, let us know. Leave a review on Apple. That helps us out so much. Well, right. And the more stars we have, the more people can see us. People can see us. It's, just like when you're scrolling, the first thing you see is the stuff with the best reviews. So, your reviews count. You don't even necessarily have to type anything. I think usually you can just leave stars. And if you have any issues with our podcast, definitely let us know before you leave us a bad review. Leave us a bad review. I just want a review. I don't even care if you like us or not. If you're like, hey, those people are stupid and ugly, leave us a review so we know that. Okay. I'll take it to heart. Take that to heart. And I might cry. We're not going to cry about your shitty review if that's what you think about us. Also, which is pretty cool, I want to give a shout out to our pizza bros out there in Italy that are listening to us. Oh, absolutely. And Italy and Canada. And Spain. Oh, yeah, our Maple Leaf friends. And England. Yeah, I did want to mention... We had somebody listen to us in Manchester, England. We have had more, which is random, more international downloads to the podcast than our friends local. And family. Our friends and family don't give a fuck about us. But yet, our Italian bros do. So shout out to my pizza friends out there and my maple syrup bros. All you are cool, and we appreciate it just extremely much. You were talking about that. They must know that we listen to the Italian radio. I listen to Italian shortwave radio. You guys are repping Shania Twain over in Italy at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning. We hear you over there. We hear you. Damn, I feel like a woman. Feel like a woman. Do, 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 do. Ow. But yeah, so shout out to all you guys. We do appreciate it. I know that we skipped an episode last week, and we hope to get back on track. Life got in a way. That's just how it is, guys. Just bear with us. We got kids. We got 2 baby kids. Well, not their babies, but baby kids. We got 2 babies, and so they take up a lot of time. Yep, and sometimes and sometimes my son doesn't sleep. He don't like to sleep. And he screams. So if he's awake and he knows you're on the phone or you're trying to do something, it's just like meltdown central. So yeah, last week at 9:30, I was like, no, we're going to bed. Cash me outside. How about that? Yeah, we're going to bed. And so that's what we did. And then we didn't want to just post something in the middle of the week and then have to post again a couple days later. So we just waited a couple more days. It would fuck up the schedule, and I don't like that. I just want to have it on even weeks, or if we did it during the week, it'd be on Wednesday, and then you'd have to do another one on Saturday, Sunday. And it's just that's not cool. It kind of throws everybody off, especially like me, who I listen to a lot of podcasts, and if it's in out of order, then it messes up the rest of my podcasts that I listen to. So, yep, you can't have that. Yeah, we love y'all. We appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
The Antichrist. You got me in a vendetta kind of mood.
I think Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem. It's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is blurry, and that's extra scary to me because there's a large, out-of-focus monster roaming the countryside.
when they land and the hatch opens, perhaps we will be looking at ourselves in the mirror.
I kind of thought it was people at first, you know, off like that. But of course, when they appeared there in front of me, it was the most shock I've ever had in my life.